Okay, so let's get started. Let's close this and open up Marmosets. So here, I have an old project file that I made about a year ago. I'm just going to show you guys a quick setup on how you'd want to render for midterms. So what you want to do is put in a shadow catcher for starters. We'll go over how that works. But you want to turn that down, turn your brightness. Another thing that you might want to do is explore your options for your HDRIs. Parrish, the sculpting professor, he generally goes for Studio Beauty as his main go. And that's also one that I also highly recommend. Just turn those down. And what you want to do is do a 3-point lighting setup, like so. Put in Omni 1. Omni, think of it as like a point light if you use Unreal. Put in another Omni right there, and one that's a little bit closer. Like so. That's act as your room light. What you want to do now, just turn that down all the way. Go to Render. Change that to Ray Tracing. Now you got your shadows, like so. And one thing I like to do with a shadow catcher in particular is I like to give it indirect shadow so I can get that nice reflection. Parrish is a huge fan of that, just a heads up. So bring this down, or bring it up a little bit so it kind of matches it. What you want to do now is adjust the shadows. What I like to do is I like to increase the diameter so I can get it a bit softer, like so. Maybe bump up this lighting right here so it can act as rim light. Another thing that you might be interested in is possibly going to your main camera, changing your field of view. Let's make it a little bit more close, like so. Another thing, put in your save frame, render. Now we're gonna change your image to where it just basically matches up like so. And then scene, not that, scene, add object, if I can get to it. Put in your turntable. I just dock it above that. The character in there. And now you have a turntable set up. Although this is still a little bit bright, but it does get the point across. And something else that you might also be interested in is, let's say you have skin, right? And you want to add subsurface. You go to transmission, subsurface scatter, and see here, there's a slight subsurface that just kind of changes up the turntable ever so slightly. But even that can make a nice difference when it comes to rendering for your midterms. So, but yeah, I had a few people ask how to set that up. Oh, another thing, you then go to video, click the 3 dots. I just usually put in downloads. Bump up the samplings to like 2K. And just hit render video. Generally, depending on poly count, as well as how much you want to denoise, it can usually take up to an hour or two for rendering. Yeah, it can be a little bit of a pain. But it's worth it, because then you get a fun little critique by Parrish. But yeah, I had a few people ask to do a little demo on that, and there you go. Now let's do the workshop. So it looked like ZBrush Crash. I love that for us. It does that quite a bit, especially for me, because ZBrush hates me. Hello. Hello. So I'm just gonna reopen ZBrush real fast. Probably gonna take a minute or two. But yeah, does anyone have any Marmoset questions before we start? All right, sick. Let's just get this loaded then. There we go. We have it loaded now. And now let me open up a couple other things. Hello. Okay. So first thing that we're gonna go over is alphas and how to properly use them in ZBrush. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna drag out a simple little sphere. Edit. So alphas. Does anyone know what an alpha is? Would you like to tell us?
I wish I could explain it better. It's like a image texture.
Yeah.
Almost, that you can project onto the model.
Yes.
So for skin or feathers or scales, things
Indeed.
like that. You can use alphas for.
And ZBrush likes to make a huge big deal with alphas, especially for a majority of their brushes. So what I'm going to show is how to properly utilize that. So generally you want to go to your standard brush, which is BSU. It used to be BST in earlier versions, and now BST I think is a selection brush. So you open up alpha, import. I'm just going to grab a random alpha. I have a very particular favorite. What you want to do is give subdivisions, so that way you can increase the resolution. Another thing I forgot. I make a, I forgot to make polymesh 3D. Anyways, so then let's give that another subdiv, drag it out. Oh, drag rect. So this is our esteemed god, Parrish Baker. Anyways. So that's how you usually utilize certain alphas, like that in particular. Some other things that you can do, you can go to Make 3D. This is something that they teach you inside the advanced hard surface sculpting class. This is also a little secret, well, not much of a secret, but so what you want to do is you go to Import. Let's grab something a little bit more serious. Ornamental. Maybe something for my rosettes. Grab that. Bump up resolution. Hit Make 3D. Let that cook. Look at that.
That's an alpha?
Yeah, that's an alpha that you made 3D. Don't tell that to anyone, alright? Otherwise, they'll extort that in the 333 class. Ooh. I'm kidding. Anyways, so that's a little trick with alphas. That's also how I would probably go about a lot of the filigree when it comes to like the 433 class, the hard surface sculpting class. It's also how I made some props in there, but another thing that I like to do is also draw out my own custom alphas, to which then I would also then make that polymesh 3D, just clean up some stuff in there and whatnot. And speaking of skin, let's get back to that. BST. Oh, BSU. Sorry, got a little used to the old version. Import. Let's say I want to put in some skin, right? Let's grab some skin from a random pack that I have. Like this. So you drag it out like so, you get that, right? So a lot of things that a lot of people don't really take note of when it comes to using alphas in ZBrush is making good use of their mid-value system, like so. Bump it up to 55. So that's a slight difference, but a slight difference can mean a lot in the long run. This is pretty much the old-fashioned way of how you would do pore placement. Nowadays, people use XYZ texture skins, or they do Z-wrap. What else can I show you guys with alphas? I believe that'll be it. Take that back. Let's go to surface noise. Let's talk more on that. So, another thing that I like to do is I like to use surface noise. Like so. So ZBrush by default has quite a bit that you can select from for surface noise. You can make use of alphas as well. For instance, you can go edit, click here. Also, if anyone has any questions, feel free to always raise your hand, whatnot. Let's say I just want to repeat this one, right? So bump that down, increase the noise, or at least the strength. See, I believe that was the issue. So let's go back to here, bring that back in, and now bring the noise down, bring it to here, decrease that. What you can do here is make it tileable like so. Hence is a strong usage, or at least the reason why I like to use surface noise. Another thing that you might notice is you get this really bad stretching. So to get rid of that, you go to UV, and this, since this is a primitive, it's already UV'd. Depending on how stretched your UVs are, you can also tile it a lot better or a lot easier with UVs turned on. What you want to do now, you click OK. I'm just going to change that to a matte cap gray. Red hurts my eyes. Then I go to apply to mesh. Boom. That's how you get that. Another thing that you can also do is mask by noise. Just kind of change that to your personal preferences. You can also then inflate it like so. I also like to go to deformation tools and just play around with whatever I have there. You got inflate balloon. Oh, this one's a bit more taxing. You also got spearize. Oh, it doesn't really work in this case. Let's maybe you do that. Then spearize. There you go. But yeah, you got a lot of tools at your disposal when it comes to this kind of deal. Let's see. Now some brushes that I would use for hard surface. Now here we go to the fun part. So I'm gonna do some of the geometry, Dynamesh. I'm just gonna start a little sculpt. All right. So let's move this around, make something weird. It's like half of a weird face.
A shrew or something.
Yeah. Kind of make it look goofy. Maybe. I don't know. Like, make this like a goofy, fun little skull, I guess. Check it out. Let's give some subdivisions. And now, let's try to go over some hard surface brushes. So, generally, what I like to start out with is a little bit of a base structure. Especially if I'm making stuff like skulls or whatever, right? I don't know what skull this would belong to, but it's definitely a fascinating creature to behold. BST? I should have what was it? BSH. You know, over this brush in the last demo, but it's very useful nonetheless. Again, this skull looks quite funky. Can soften it up a little bit like so. Now we got a little bit of a weird base going on. Let's start. So BTD is your trim dynamic. It can also help you get those strong edges that you can get when you're hard surface sculpting, like so. It's also very useful when it comes to stylize, or at least stylization in sculpts. Another brush that's similar to Trim Dynamic is BHP, which is basically the stronger version of H polish. Oh, no, stronger version of Trim Dynamic, my apologies. Like I said, helps you get that nice stylization look, like so. Some other brushes that you might be interested in could possibly be chisel, which is like it pretty much says, a chisel brush. What you can do is you can bring that to freehand, hold down on it, hold down with shift, drag out, boom, just like so. Smooth it out. It's a little chisel indentation and everything you can do with that. Say I want parish, right? Check it out. Boom, you get thousands of parishes in one little indentation. We like to have fun around here. What else can I show you guys? I believe those are pretty much the basic brushes for hard surface. If we're to get more advanced, we'll then go on to the basics of polygrouping and blocking out, the blockout technique that you usually see in a lot of hard surface. For this, I'm just going to pull up a little concept. Here we go. So I'm just gonna try to get the head of this guy ready. Block that out, whatnot. And I'm also gonna introduce you guys to a little bit of Z Modeler. And good references, especially for hard surface, is, I know I keep on bringing this guy up a lot, but Michael Pavlich, excellent resource, definitely recommend. He has this excellent breakdown series of a boots that he made. Cannot get enough of the guy. So generally what you want to do is use fundamentals of sculpting out the headpiece, which I will show you guys once I get my hotkeys sorted out. Here we go. I'm just gonna speed demo. Okay. Alright. So to get the basic form of the head, I'm just gonna bring this in. Up, like so. Bring this down. Got subdivisions. And now I'm just gonna continuously block it out. Get certain shapes going on. Using the techniques that I was going over before. Techniques, tips, and brushes. Like I said, just doing a little block out of the head of this little weird bug thing. Let's do a little something basic right here for the sides. A little indentation area right there. Another thing I like to do is I like to bring in primitives to help block out other shape language that you see within the scene. Like so. We'll detail that area more as we keep on progressing through the sculpt. Hello. There we go. Oh, and mirror and weld. For those that know, it's modified topology, and right there. Let's get those primitives back in there. Just gonna keep on detailing away, like so. So now, let's talk about paneling. So, Parrish, whatever sculpting professor you had, usually teaches the extraction method. I do not do that. I duplicate after I turn off visibility. I then mask it out after I give it subdivisions. Let's give that subdivisions another one too, so that way I do not forget. You then hold down on here, on control, get your mask pen. Just gonna sketch out a panel. Another thing that you might be interested in when it comes to sketching out your panels, on control, shift, wait. Nah, take that back. We'll get on to that later on. But like I said, you're just gonna draw out your panel like so. Control Alt to inverse. Control W. Control W basically makes that a polygroup. To open up your polygroups, hit Shift F. Polygroups are essentially areas of selection in ZBrush. Delete lower. Control Shift, click. Then you go to polygroups, auto groups. Control Shift, click outside of that. Control Shift, click on each one of these. And then what you want to do now, select rect, drag out, click, click. Control Shift, drag, Control W. Control Shift, click outside of that. What you want to do now is Control Shift, click on that again. Generally, I like to work on 1, so that way I can then mirror it over. And then you go to Geometry, delete Hidden, and now you go to Deformations, Polish by Groups, click the little circle like so. Just kind of clean it up. And then using your ZBrush settings, ZRemesh settings, ZRemesh to get cleaner topology. Switch then, Control Shift. Actually, before we do that, Control, just kind of mask this area out now. And polygroups, you gotta keep them on when you're ZRemeshing for this operation, and you'll see why. Control W, Shift F, Polish by groups. Now, ZRemesh. So there seems to be an issue there. Oh, that's pretty curious. Never seen that happen before. Wow, it worked this time. Yep, you see new bugs in ZBrush every day. As you can see, it kept that line that you made. That is very important when it comes to stuff like this. And now, you're just gonna move around to topology to make it cleaner. Control Shift, click on your selections, knife curve, drag out. It's a little bit too dense. So then, use slice curve, drag out, delete hidden, slice curve again. You're basically just cleaning it up, just like so. Now just ZRemesh. Sometimes if you get it a little too low, it'll start to get a little finicky. Let's see. Oh, let me try to fix this real fast. Okay, so that didn't really do it. Anyways, now Control W, that makes everything one polygroup. Hit double. To find double, you go to initialize. Oh, not initialize, displace properties. Click double. And now you go to BZM. And now we have ZModeler. It's very fun. And it's also really huge pain as a learning curve. But it's basically the box modeling brush and ZBrush. So let's go over some basic stuff. So generally, like I said, B, Z, M is the hotkeys. Go over reverse face, hold on space. You then have your polygroup actions or polygon actions. A lot of these look very familiar for those that are familiar with box modeling in general. For instance, you have your inset, which this basically insets a face like so. You also have mask, which is pretty self-explanatory. Mask certain areas. So then do that. You also have your move, which basically moves a mesh, or in this case, the polygon, polygroup. With this, you can change different polygroup settings depending on the situation. QMesh is basically extrude, except on steroids. That's what I like to believe. The reason why I say it's like on steroids is because it's very sensitive to other polygroups, to which then it will basically connect. Example, I can show you. Oh, another thing, hold on Alt, drag while still holding on Alt. Basically highlights it, let go of Alt, makes a new polygroup. While still holding it on the screen, hit Alt, changes different polygroups. Drag it out, drag this out. Like I said, QMesh is very sensitive. However, you can extrude just as a basic extrude function. And of course, you have all these other fun little options and whatnot. Key thing to remember is just have fun. Explore what these do, and you'll eventually master them at your own rate. You also have your points. This is a little fun one I like to do with the points. I like to do splits. And then you also have your edge actions. But like I said, just play around with them. I'll send links to stuff I recommend as well, and the SCAD Sculpts as far as tutorials and whatnot. Of course, you also have the option of asking in the officers if you need help. But yeah, let's keep on continuing with the little demo. QMesh, polygroup island, drag that out, click on the double, hit flip, so you can then flip the normals. Actually, let's click on here, delete hidden, and now this is just gonna be a little sculpting demo. EMV. Try to line it up like so. Control Shift. BZM. Over that, transpose, edge loop complete. Click on the mask. So now you have a little bit more of a sharper, much more defined line, like so. BMV. Just gonna move around the polygons. Let's match with what masked out earlier. BTD. To then bring down the sketch. And this isn't necessarily the cleanest geometry. Sometimes you might want to bring it back into, say, Maya or Blender, to which then you would want to redo some of the topology to make it much cleaner. BZM, Control W. Hit that double. QMesh Polygroup Island, bring that in. Hit double, flip the normals. And now let's talk about creasing. So what creasing does is basically essentially like adding support loops in Maya or Blender, and then you give it a subdivision and it makes it sharper. So generally, how I like to go about my creases is I like to highlight certain polygroups, or at least areas of where I want to make polygroups. You'll see why here momentarily. Switch then, you'll go to Geometry, Crease PG. Hover over this edge loop, go to Crease, edge loop complete, crease it like so. Now you get subdivisions. Now you got this nice hard edges going around like so. And generally, what I like to do is I like to then smooth it out. And now, let's keep on demoing. BZM. X. Just get rid of those. Space, inset, polygroup island, bring it in like so. Space, QMesh, polygroup island, like so. Bring that in. Go over here, insert edge loop, polygroup, poly loop, solo, extrude, or in this case, QMesh. Bring that out. Go to here. Can do another inset, like so. QMesh, polygroup island, bring that out. In this case, you'll then go to here, edge loop complete. On the bevel, go to here. Hello.
Hey.
It's being recorded, just a heads up.
Okay.
PCB, Shift F. Now you give it subdivisions, Control D. Smooth it out like so. You want to go to here. insert. Let's grab spear. W, transpose that down. In this case, we can probably make a little cushiony substance to wrap around here.
See you later.
Right, man.
No boys, bye boys.
BCP.
Bye.
Later, coach.
I hope you heard.
Huh?
I hope you heard. I doubt it.
Sometimes, generally when it comes to a lot of mechy stuff, I like to add organic elements to really make it pop. Like so. I'm gonna mirror this over. Go back to here. And you're just gonna keep on keeping on. Duplicate. Hide that. Gonna mask this out after we did a little bit more sculpting to really define the areas. I'm just going to mask that out. Like so. Control W, Control Select, or Control Shift, select that. Gonna then delete subdivs, delete hidden. I'm just gonna polish it. Sear mesh. Do a somewhat cleanish topology. It's what we would want. Grab out your original block out. Then kind of just adjust the poly groups like so. All right, BZM. Just gonna bring this up a little. Solo, bring this down. Insert, delete this. Group by normals, increase PG. I give that some subdivs. Actually, let's just bring this up ever so slightly. Now, let's try that again. Nope. All right. Go to here, increase PG. Now go to subdivisions, ECB. And now, let's try to give this guy some eyes. Let's get a little funky with it. Actually, let's just get rid of that. Put in bolt insertions. Yeah, these are some fun little techniques. Yeah, that's pretty much the workshop. Does anyone have any questions? All right, that's it. Thank you for those that tuned in.